Okay, so have you ever heard that old term, location, location, location? You know what that means? Why they used to say that? Before your time, Carolyn, maybe?
Is that for airplane stuff?
No, it's like a marketing thing. For a business, it was always important, in a real estate sense, where your business is located is important. Like Taco Bell down the street is right on the corner of two main streets. Very good prime location. But if it was, we're not in the primest of locations because we're way back from the main street, you know. So a storefront always wanted to be on a corner that had good entrances. So location, location, location was always important if you're out looking for a spot for your business. Like Pink Parlor's not necessarily in the best location. It's way back away from the other businesses, so it's not a prime spot. Huh? Yes, I know, yeah. She's still a good business, I'm just saying. It's this location makes a difference. But, so even in the Bible, believe it or not, locations are important. And so we're going to get into a little bit of that, why in this lesson. We could probably spend a lot of time on that, but I'm not going to do that. We're just going to kind of touch lightly on why locations are important in the Bible for a multitude of reasons. But first, I wanted to kind of backtrack a little bit where we were last week on the two dreams, because we didn't quite touch on everything that was in the two dreams, so I wanted to go back to that. So Genesis 37, 5 through 7, it said, "Now Joseph had a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more. So he said to them, 'Please hear this dream which I have dreamed. There we were binding sheaves in the field. Then behold, my sheaf arose and also stood upright, and indeed your sheaves stood all around and bowed down to my sheaf.'" So who is in this dream? Who was this dream about? Joseph and his brothers. Okay, so Joseph and his brothers. We'd covered quite a few points about these dreams last week, but there was just one or two more points I wanted to cover. So then the next dream, the second dream that he had, that's Genesis 37, 9 through 10. Then he dreamed still another dream and told it to his brothers and said, "Look, I have dreamed another dream. And this time the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars bowed down to me." So he told it to his father and his brothers, and his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall your mother and I and your brothers indeed come to bow down to the earth before you?" So who is in this dream? Who was it about?
His dad, his mom, and his brothers.
Right, Joseph, his parents, and his brothers. So the first dream is a prophecy of when the brothers alone came before Joseph, you find out in Genesis 42. So the very first trip down was only the brothers that went before Joseph, and they bowed down before him to ask for grain, right? So the second dream is a prophecy of when Jacob and the brothers came befor Joseph, and then you read about that in Genesis 46. And of course the wives were there, whatever wives were still alive, Bilhah, and I can't think of the other wife's name, but anyway, so some of the moms were there too. Whole family came down in Genesis 46.
Finally get to our teaser.
Not quite.
Oh, bummer.
Sorry to say, I could not believe this section we're in. I thought we would be like breezing through and then get to the whole why was 17 important, and no, even God has stuff even in the little breezeway section, which I thought, oh, okay, I'm sorry, I teased again. We didn't get there.
I thought this was one of the teasers.
This is one of the teasers, but there was that other one which we're not going to make it to because there was just too much stuff in this little section. So why did Joseph tell his brothers the second dream after their bad reaction to the first dream? That's what I mentioned to you a couple of times. You say it's because he was a brat?
Donna wasn't in here.
So that's one commentator's viewpoint. Miss Donna says he was a brat.
That he wasn't a snitch.
So yeah, any other ideas why he tells the brothers the first dream and they get mad at him and hate him even more. So he walks up however many months, days, weeks, whatever later and goes, hey, guess what? And this time he dragged his parents into the conversation and tells the dream, which shows they're all bowing down. Why would he do that after he got hated even more?
To make it more serious, the situation, like confirmation that it's the second time that this is happening, so it may be true.
Yeah, I think you're
So
getting
maybe
close.
it's coming out for sure.
It's gonna
happen. They'll remember those dreams.
right,
Prophecy.
right. Yeah. I mean, many people have always said, I mean, even our little Sunday school lessons for the kids is, oh, Joseph was bad. He's being pride-filled. He's bragging to his brothers. Now he's bragging to his parents. I'm going to be some bigwig, and you guys are going to bow down to me. So we look at him very badly because that's what some commentators or Sunday school lessons will teach. Now, think about Joseph. What did we learn? He was 17, and his father thought he was good enough to take over the family business. What else did we learn? He was raised in a more loving atmosphere than his brothers were. He was better behaved. He was honest, right? His father trusted him. So do you think he would be prideful and mean and want to just go tell his brothers? Doesn't sound like it, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit his character. I mean, most of us have read his stories all the way through, and he's not a bad character. He doesn't seem to mistreat anybody along the way ever. So here at this age, it's close to what Damaris is saying. The odds are he knew this was from God, because when you have basically the same dream a second time, it's a confirmation from God that this is real, this is going to happen. So why would he want to tell his father now? He wants to tell his father this time. It's probably because he knows it's for real, it's from God, and they should pay attention that this is going to come to pass. They need to look for the signs and be aware of this, that this is going to happen. So it's not out of pride. We've always been taught it's for pride, but it really isn't. It's because he's trying to, in a way, help his family. God is giving us a message. For some reason, you're going to come bow down to me at some point. It's not because he's bragging, because it hasn't happened yet. He's just telling them his dream. So, does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So, let's see. Let me get on the right spot. So, the other thing we didn't really cover, took place in that we didn't really talk too much about, was Genesis 37, 10 and 11. So he told it to his father and his brothers, and his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall your mother and I and your brothers indeed come to bow down to the earth before you?" And his brothers envied him, but his father kept the matter in mind. So we read that last week, but it's kind of interesting, and it's really hard to say why, but his father rebuked him after he told him that. His father didn't take too kindly to being told, "I'm going to bow down to you." Doesn't make much sense to the father. He's the head of the family. You get mixed opinions about why this happened. Some say that he rebuked him maybe because he was trying to make the stepbrothers or half-brothers stay calm, maybe appease them a little bit, but he's putting Joseph in his place. Don't tell me I'm going to bow down to you. That's what some commentators will say. There's no real good answer why he did that. Maybe he thought Joseph had gotten a big head, you know.
I think it was just his natural reaction when
Yeah.
he told that, but then it says he kept these things in his mind. So
Right.
maybe after that he thought, well, consider the source. Who is this?
Who's telling me this? Yeah.
He's not been a smart aleck or whatever.
Right, yeah.
A person that would be telling things that upset you.
Right, and that's where I kind of lean is the fact that it may have been a shock to his system, but he understood that there was something different about this, that my son has had 2 dreams and he's been a good boy all this time, so he keeps the matter in mind. Who does that remind you of, and what other story in the Bible? I think Debbie mentioned it last week. when we breeze through this section. It reminds me of Mary.
When she kept in thinking about when they found
Right, she pondered.
at the temple, was it?
Right, she pondered the different things that were told. So, hey, where's my verse? Did my verse disappear? Okay, well, maybe I'm not there yet. So matter and mind was the next fill in the blank. Because that's what's more important. No matter what reason Jacob rebuked Joseph, what's more important is he realized it was important, that he should think about it and not forget it. Which is really probably what Joseph was going for, that the family remember what was said. So Luke 2:19, but Mary kept all these things and pondered them in her heart. She did the same thing. So here, we know Joseph is foreshadowing Jesus throughout. And here we see the parents almost foreshadowing. Jacob kept it in mind what was going on. He pondered. It means he kept thinking about it. Same thing Mary did about Jesus. She kept thinking about what she had been told about him. She had been told a lot about him, prophecy-wise. So this gives an indication that Jacob might have realized that the dreams were from God and important too. He didn't build up anger or get envious like the brothers did. Instead, he just contemplated what the dreams meant. He kept thinking about them. So now we're going to move on to the next part of the story, which is what I thought we were originally going to breeze through, but didn't. Genesis 37, 12 through 13 is where we'll go. Then his brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem, and Israel said to Joseph, "Are not your brothers feeding the flock in Shechem? Come, I will send you to them." So this is where our lessons in the 23rd Psalm pay off on shepherding patterns. Do you remember what the habits of the shepherds were in Israel?
Stay with the sheep.
Well, yeah. They would be down on their home ranch, usually near Bethlehem. Somewhere near Bethlehem was where a lot of the sheep herds lived during the winter months, right? Then they would travel northward as it got hotter. So they would start moving northward in Israel because they'd move up to the higher lands. So by summer, they were in the tablelands, the highlands, where it was cooler and the grass was still green. So here we see this going on right here with this family. They lived in Hebron, which was about 12 miles or so below Bethlehem. That's where their family ranch was at. So, but where are the brothers? They're up clear in Shechem. That's 50 miles away. They've moved 50 miles north with the sheep. They've moved past Bethlehem, past Jerusalem. They're up north now with the sheep. Jacob is still, because he's older, back on the ranch with Joseph, probably teaching him the family business, who knows what, because he's already made him heir. So he's spending time with his dad. So this is where some of the location is important, and we're going to learn some different aspects of location. What do you remember during the 23rd Psalm about the Wadi Kelt? Do you remember about that location?
Down in the valley?
Yeah, the Valley of the Shadow of Death. Yeah. So it was, that location was known as the Bloody Pass, and it's the same place Jesus passed through on his way to be crucified. Remember we talked about that? And so that location, you'll see a lot of times in the Bible, you'll find locations that are repeated or reused and have the same similar incident or event go on in them. And so the Wadi Kelt was you see the symbolism, it was a place of death, and even Jesus had used it in his parable of the Good Samaritan. That whole story could have even actually been a real story he was telling from his life, walking through the Wadi Kelt. But there are other types of incidences or locations in the Bible. It may be because they're reusing them in story after story with a similarity, or maybe it's a place that's dear to God's heart, and you see that mentioned over and over, and Jerusalem is one of those. Even the name of God, which is Sheen, see that little W thing up there? That's the sheen. It's, a three-pronged Hebrew letter. That's the name of God, and it's called the sheen. It's the mark of God in the Hebrew language. So interesting, you see Jerusalem as God's city over and over again. It's his special place throughout the Bible. So in Jerusalem, do you see this map of Jerusalem? You see how it goes like this? The rivers and the valleys divide the city. And so when you put the mark over it, it's the exact same shape. The Hebrews people knew that the mark of God was on their city. Interestingly, into their geography. Isn't that interesting? But you know where else God put his name, his mark?
And the heart, the box of the heart.
In your heart. Your heart is the same shape, same valley and shapes. Isn't that interesting? I always thought that was a cool thing. God's got his mark on us. He's got his mark on his special city, Jerusalem. The geography fits that shape, and they know that. That's where God's mark's at. So that's an interesting location thing that you learn about in the Bible. So there's those things throughout the Bible, because you can read about, there's just so much. I mean, this would be a large lesson all by itself. But in today's story, another incident, which we've read about before, is where did Abraham take Isaac to be sacrificed? Do you remember?
It says Mount Moriah.
Mount Moriah. Where's Mount Moriah? Golgotha. It's there beside Jerusalem. It's the place of the skull, the Calvary. So we know the foreshadowing of Abraham and Isaac was God providing the sacrifice.
It was in the same place?
Same place.
Oh my gosh, I never knew that.
I didn't know Jerusalem was available at that time.
It wasn't known as,
Jerusalem was not Abraham's home.
he was in Israel. He was in Canaan.
Canaan, right?
He traveled all through Canaan. He had sheep. Guess what he did up and down that valley? Winter down south, moved up north. But anyway, at this point, when he did the sacrifice with Isaac, it was at Mount Moriah. A complete
That's where he died. Are you talking about
Abraham.
Oh, sorry.
Abraham went to sacrifice, on God's command, went to sacrifice his only beloved son, his heir, on Mount Moriah, which just coincidentally seemed to be in the same location as the of Jesus' crucifixion. So this is the way you see locations keep playing a part in the Bible, and especially when you see these foreshadowing stories. You wouldn't have thought Abraham and I, you see the picture, Abraham's trying to sacrifice his beloved son, but if you take it even further, even the location is important. He told Abraham where to go. And you see a story with David that takes place at the same location. And we won't get into that. There's all kinds of stuff like this in the Bible. So now, here we are in poor Joseph's story. Location, location, location. So there is Hebron. You see the bottom of the screen? Mm-hmm. That's where the home ranch is. And the boys, they've traveled up to Shechem to another very special location in the family history. And that's where they're currently at with the sheep. And he wants his son Joseph, his only son, to go to Shechem up to go meet with the boys that hate him, right? Do you remember another story we talked about before? What happened with Jacob's bad boys at Shechem?
Is that where they raped?
Go ahead.
Is that where they raped?
Dinah. Yeah, and they killed the whole town. And that's coincidentally the first piece of land that any of the Israelites ever owned was right outside Shechem. That's actually property they owned. But they pretty much owned the whole town now because they killed everybody in it and took it over. But anyway, a place of a lot of evil took place there. A bad location. So where are the half-brothers all hanging out? Shechem. Where does Jacob want to send Joseph? Shechem. So you can kind of almost see that's a location thing. kind of playing a part in this. But not only can the location be vital to the story, but even its name can mean something. So sometimes you'll find out the name, and in this case, the names are important. So Hebron. Oh, wow, I just skipped ahead or skipped something, or wow. What's missing? So sorry, ladies. It's been a long day, and why am I not seeing that?
You know the answer. Tell us.
Maybe my pages are backwards.
It seems right from where I'm.
Where's my handout?
Right at the bottom.
So I think my pages are mixed up. My screens are mixed up. Life. Okay. I'm just not seeing something for some reason. I don't know why. Something's deleted or missing. Okay. I'm not sure what's going on here. All right, well, let's go to the next line, then maybe I'll come back to it. So Hebron means fellowship or communion. So where are Jacob and Joseph? They're in Hebron. And who do they represent in our foreshadowing?
God and Jesus.
Right, God the Father and Jesus. So they're in fellowship or in communion. Okay. So Shechem means shoulder or the place of burden bearing. And it also had to do with its geographical shape. I guess it almost looked like a shoulder, and it was kind of like between some things, like it was carrying a burden. So it's kind of looked like that, but it's named, so that's why they named it Shechem originally. Okay. So here you have the Father and the Son in a beautiful, peaceful place, the home ranch in Hebron, a place of fellowship and communion, right? And he's wanting to send the Son to a place of burden bearing, right? Okay, we see where this is going? So this event and its location foreshadow God the Father sending his Son from heaven, the place of fellowship and communion between the Godhead, to earth, from a place of fellowship to the place of bearing the burden of sin. So even the name titles give you something. Oh, I see. I had an extra slide somehow in there. That's what's wrong.
So God was guiding Jacob to send Joseph to that part to suffer whatever.
Yeah, I mean, God's hand is all the way in this. You just see it over and over again. So, but what's really cool is not only we're seeing God the Father wanting to send the Son, we see the Son's response. What does it say in the second half of 13? So he said to him, "Here I am." Joseph was willing to go, and he knows his brothers hate him. And it hated him even more by the time he told the second dream. Yet he's still willing to go to Shechem to see them. What's that tell you about Jesus? He was willing to come to earth. No matter how bad we are, he came for us. So Joseph is foreshadowing that. Joseph foreshadows Jesus willingly coming to earth for us to do his Father's will. It's his Father sending him on this mission. It's re-emphasize how even though Joseph was hated, he was willing to go. How many people hate Jesus. And he's willing to go and die.
Can I see the lines before that one?
Did I go? Where at? All the way back?
Before that.
That one?
Yeah.
Did you miss a word?
Yeah.
Sorry. Got it?
Thank you.
And did we get all this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so Hebrews 10:7 says, "And I said, Behold, I have come. In the volume of my book it is written of me to do your will, O God." That was written about Jesus, what he had said. Paul was writing that. So do you want me to keep going? Or are you ready for bed?
Okay.
Dawn's good. Debbie's needing coffee.
Unfortunately, I have to leave.
Okay. Well, then maybe we'll quit. And we'll just take up.
It's a good time to quit because I'm hungry.
Okay, Debbie's hungry, so we're quitting in the middle of the lesson. So we'll take up the rest of this later. Bye.